Welcome to BL Stories, where romance, drama, and unforgettable boys' love come to life. Love knows no limits, and the best stories aren't always straight. Subscribe now and join our growing BL-loving family. Wake-ups next to someone after drinking too much are common in today's society, but waking up in Nico Beckett's sheets was a nightmare for Wesley Dillon. He had a quiet life, enjoying it without trouble or trouble. However, he was not ready for the waves of Nico Beckett, a troublemaker, womanizer, and popular boy at his school. Nico was everything Wes was not, and he was everything Wes never wanted to associate with. After waking up with panic and pains, Wesley realized that his life was going to get more complicated. It took him everything to try not to drown as the waves pulled him further down. However, somewhere along the way, he wasn't sure if drowning was actually a bad thing. Wesley Dillon was content with his life, but sometimes he wished something could make ripples in his world. Chapter 1. It's warm, I thought to myself, a small smile tugging at my lips as I snuggled deeper into the soft, crinkled sheets. The blankets felt unusually smooth, almost silky against my skin, though they were oddly wrapped around me. Still half asleep, I grumbled and tugged at them, trying to pull them higher to cover my chilled shoulders under the slow hum of the ceiling fan. The blankets shifted obediently, and I let out a satisfied sigh. But just as I got comfortable, they slipped again, sliding down to my waist. I frowned and reached for them, only to realize something was already draped heavily across my stomach. It felt warm and solid. Definitely not part of the blanket. Confused, I blinked my sleepy eyes open and followed the trail of my hand. My fingers weren't gripping fabric at all, they were gripping what looked suspiciously like an arm. An arm? My heart skipped. I lifted it slightly, and my stomach instantly felt cold without it. As my blurry vision cleared, realization struck me like a jolt of lightning. It was a human arm. "Oh my gosh," I whispered, my voice trembling as I froze in place. My breathing grew quick and shallow while my eyes darted around the unfamiliar room. The ceiling wasn't mine, it was painted dark green, not light blue like my bedroom. A ceiling fan spun lazily above me, wobbling as it cast faint shadows across the walls. There were posters of cars everywhere, a cluttered desk piled with random items, and a digital clock flashing 1:47 p.m. in bright red. Clothes were scattered across the floor and furniture, leading from the door to the bed, ending with a familiar pair of jeans draped at the foot. My jeans. "Oh no," I muttered under my breath, panic rising as the arm around me tightened. A deep voice groaned beside me, muffled and sleepy, followed by the faint smell of cologne and something else, like smoke and last night's party air. Please don't tell me this is real, I thought, my eyes shutting as I tried to steady my breathing. Please don't tell me I actually... Before I could finish the thought, warm breath brushed against my face. I turned my head slightly and there he was. The first thing I noticed were his lips, slightly parted, calm in sleep, with a faint shadow of stubble framing them. My eyes moved up to a nose that looked like it had been broken once, and strong cheekbones that caught the soft light filtering through the curtains. Even without seeing his eyes, I knew exactly who it was. Because I knew him. "Nico Beckett," I whispered, my stomach dropping as if I'd fallen off a cliff. He stirred at the sound of his name. "Be quiet. I'm sleeping," Nico mumbled, his deep, groggy voice vibrating against my arm. That was enough to snap me completely awake. I shot up so fast the blanket flew off the bed. My heart pounded as I scrambled to collect my clothes, my jeans, my shirt, one sock hanging off a trash bin, my glasses balanced on a tissue box, and one shoe on the doorknob for some reason. My outfit ended up inside out, my shirt backward, and my shoelaces untied, but I didn't care. I just had to get out of there. Out of Nico Beckett's room. "Okay, think, I whispered frantically as I bolted out the door and down the street. My mind was spinning so fast I didn't even notice where I was running until my legs stopped on their own. Panting, I stood on my doorstep, hair sticking to my forehead, my heart still racing. I banged on the door, glancing nervously at my neighbor Maggie, who had paused mid-hedge trim to stare at me with a mix of curiosity and confusion under her sun visor. Perfect. Just what I needed. The door suddenly swung open, and there stood my older sister, still in her pajamas, toothbrush hanging out of her mouth. She blinked at me, clearly amused by my wild appearance. Without a word, I brushed past her and slammed the door shut, pressing my back against it. My chest heaved as I tried to calm down, running a shaky hand through my messy hair. This couldn't be real. There was no way. But deep down I knew it was. I had just woken up in Nico Beckett's bed. "Mum will be happy to know you're not lying in a ditch somewhere," Jamie teased, pulling her toothbrush from her mouth and wiping away a bit of toothpaste foam with the back of her hand. Some of it dripped onto her oversized shirt, which hung down to her mid-thigh, nearly hiding her shorts completely. Her brown hair was tied in a loose bun that tilted slightly to one side, a towel headband barely keeping the shorter strands off her face. "I'm alive, I think," I breathed, still catching my breath from running. Jamie grinned, her eyes glinting with amusement. "I told her you were staying at Benny's house. You can thank me later, cash or card accepted," she joked, looping her free hand around my arm. "Thanks," I said dryly, still trying to sound normal while my pulse raced. As the adrenaline faded, my head began to throb, my mouth went dry, and an uneasy feeling started to creep in, like a dull ache spreading through me. "Oh no, please tell me nothing happened." Jamie sighed dramatically. "My baby brother's first high school party," she said, shaking her head fondly. "You definitely had something to drink. And you're super sweaty." She leaned in, sniffed playfully and grinned. "Don't tell me you actually—" "I didn't," I blurted, a little too loudly. The sudden shout made my head pound. Jamie froze for a second, then burst into laughter, nearly choking on minty air. Tears formed at the corners of her eyes as she bent over, trying to catch her breath. "Oh my gosh, Wes," she gasped between giggles, clutching her stomach. "You should see your face right now." I turned away, cheeks burning. My mind flashed back to the morning, the warmth of Nico's arm, his voice, the sound of his breathing. A wave of nausea hit me, and I wasn't sure if it was from embarrassment or the hangover. "I was just joking," Jamie said after calming down, still smiling as she wiped her eyes. "But really you should shower." Quietly though, "Mum's still sleeping." "Says the one who just woke up the whole street," I muttered, rubbing my temples. Jamie only shrugged, grinning as she gently nudged me toward the stairs. By the time I reached the bathroom, my head was pounding again. I closed the door behind me and locked it, leaning against the counter for support. For a moment I just stood there, staring at my reflection. Blonde hair, messy and flat from sleep, clung to my forehead. My freckles looked darker than usual against my flushed skin. The dark circles under my eyes were undeniable. I looked exhausted, disoriented, and not like myself. I turned on the faucet, wincing as it squeaked, and cupped cool water into my mouth. I drank greedily, letting some spill down my chin before splashing my face. The chill helped clear my head a little. When I lifted my shirt, my breath caught. Faint red marks trailed across my shoulder and down my back. My hands trembled as I reached for a towel, dampened it, and pressed it against my skin, hoping the marks would fade. They didn't. "This isn't real," I whispered shakily, staring at my reflection. "It can't be." My memories from last night were blurry, just flashes of laughter, music, and then darkness. I tried to piece it together, but it was like my mind refused to fill in the blanks. "No, no, no," I murmured, shutting my eyes tightly as if that would make it all disappear. Pushing away the thoughts, I peeled off my rumpled clothes and stepped into the shower, turning the handle all the way to cold. The first shock of icy water made me gasp, but I didn't care. I just wanted to feel awake, to wash away the confusion and guilt weighing down on me. As the water ran down my back, I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe through the pounding in my head. "This is not good," I whispered to myself, the sound barely audible over the steady rush of water. My chest tightened, and before I knew it, tears mixed silently with the stream of the shower. "Really not good," I said again, voice cracking. Because no matter how much I tried to forget, one thought echoed in my mind. I had woken up in Nico Beckett's bed. Chapter 2. I pulled on a clean set of clothes, choosing loose shorts instead of my usual jeans. My body was still sore, and comfort was my top priority. My stomach growled as I carefully headed downstairs. My head felt heavy, my thoughts scattered, and my heart still raced whenever my mind tried to piece together last night. But I needed food. And water. And maybe some painkillers to survive the rest of the day. Jamie was already in the kitchen, humming softly with one earbud in, her phone tucked into the waistband of her shorts. She gave me a knowing smile and pointed at the sandwich waiting on the counter. I mouthed a quiet thanks, and she gave a playful curtsy in response. Mornings like this were common for us, calm, quiet, and spent in unspoken agreement not to wake our mum, who worked night shifts at the hospital. Most of the time, it was just the two of us. Mum was usually sleeping when we were home, and Dad was often away for work. But somehow, we didn't mind. We were used to the silence. Maybe that's why I'd always found comfort in it. Something soft brushed against my feet, making me glance down. Jojo, our golden Labrador, wagged her tail happily, her tongue lolling out as her eyes locked on the sandwich in my hands. "Hungry?" I asked with a chuckle. She straightened up, panting in anticipation. Shaking my head, I pulled off a small piece of chicken and dropped it into her open mouth. She munched happily before rubbing her head against my foot and patting toward her food bowl. "You really need to stop spoiling her," Jamie sighed, but she was already reaching for a can of dog food. I smirked at the contradiction, pressing down my sandwich so the mashed avocado squeezed from the sides. One bite in, and I nearly melted with relief. Food had never tasted so good. Jamie giggled and tossed me a small box of Panadol, which slid across the counter until it bumped my plate. "You look like you need it," she said. "Thanks," I muttered, popping out 2 tablets and swallowing them dry. "You seem a little too good at this," I teased. Jamie snorted. "Most people my age would be. Honestly, most people your age too." "I'm 17, I said flatly. "That's literally illegal." "Says the one who came home looking like a disaster," she replied, laughing as she dug a spoon into a tub of ice cream. I glared at her. "Want to share what happened yesterday?" she asked, waving her spoon at me. "You're not exactly the type to go wild. You're usually boring," I offered. I was going to say responsible, but sure, she said with a grin. "It's not a bad thing. Mum had her hands full with me growing up, so at least one of us turned out to be the calm one." I choked slightly on a bite of lettuce, coughing as my face burned. "I am responsible," I said firmly, mostly trying to convince myself. "And for the record, nothing happened. I went to a party, had a few drinks, and crashed at a friend's place." Friend. The word hung heavy in my mind. Nico Beckett and I were anything but friends. Actually, I wasn't even sure he knew I existed, at least, not before last night. Nico Beckett. Just thinking his name made my pulse skip. He was a year older, the type of person everyone at school knew about for one reason or another. People said he repeated year 11, though no one knew exactly why. He wasn't popular because he was friendly or approachable, far from it. He had that kind of presence that drew people in even when he pushed them away. Girls adored him. Some said he was mysterious, others said he was trouble. And somehow, both descriptions fit. Guys either tried to be like him or hung around him, hoping to catch some of the attention that followed him everywhere. He had that kind of effortless confidence, the kind that made people talk even when he wasn't in the room. And me? I'd never understood the hype. At least, I thought I didn't. Until now. I pushed my half-eaten sandwich away, my appetite gone, and stood up from the counter. "Thanks, Jamie," I said softly. She frowned at my unfinished food but didn't say anything. Instead, she shrugged and took a bite herself, wrinkling her nose at the bland taste. As I filled a tall glass with water, she called after me, "Remember to come down for dinner later. It's Mum's day off, she's cooking tonight." I raised the glass in acknowledgement as I headed upstairs. Once in my room, I locked the door and collapsed face first onto my bed, groaning into my pillow. The fresh sheets were cool and crisp, a sharp contrast to the wrinkled, unfamiliar ones I'd woken up in earlier. This is not how I planned to spend my Saturday, I muttered, pressing my face into the covers. Usually, I'd be doing homework or taking JoJo for a walk, not trying to calm down from a panic attack while avoiding every memory from last night. The worst part? My memory was a blur. No clear images. No real explanations. Just confusion, and the sinking realization that whatever happened with Nico Beckett was something I wasn't ready to face. I am here, and that's the problem, I muttered under my breath, shrugging Benny's arm off my shoulders. Without my support, he stumbled and barely managed to catch himself on the edge of a long table, almost knocking over a vase in the process. I gave him a worried glance, but he only grinned, wiggling a finger in front of my face. "Wes, you're always so uptight," he said, his face scrunching up before breaking into a mischievous smile. "Come on. It's our last year of high school. Live a little." "I would," I replied dryly, crossing my arms. "But it's hard to enjoy myself when I'm too busy just being here." I stepped aside quickly as someone stumbled past, nearly spilling their drink on me. A few drops splashed onto my shoes and I sighed. The air smelled like alcohol and sweat, and the room pulsed with heavy music that made the walls shake. Benny mumbled something incoherent before disappearing into the crowd, leaning on strangers as he made his way deeper into the chaos. I leaned against the wall, watching the swirl of bodies moving to the beat. People laughing too loudly, dancing too close, and doing things they'd probably regret tomorrow. I hated parties. Even though this was my first one, it already confirmed everything I'd always thought about them. Messy, loud, and full of mistakes waiting to happen. The only reason I agreed to come was because Benny had convinced me that everyone should experience at least one party before graduating. I had thought maybe it'd be worth it, a memory, a milestone. Now, standing there surrounded by noise and strangers, I regretted it completely. As I was lost in my thoughts, Benny reappeared, holding 2 cups. One was pressed to his lips, the other raised high above his head. His grin was wide and lopsided as he handed me one of them, after realizing he'd given me the wrong one and quickly switching. I sniffed the drink and winced. It smelled like lemonade, and something much stronger. "I'm not drinking this," I said, trying to push it back to him. "Come on, just one?" he pleaded, eyes sparkling with tipsy mischief. "No," I replied firmly, though Benny's exaggerated pout almost made me laugh. "Wesley," he said, his tone suddenly soft and earnest despite the slur in his words. "We've been friends forever. Just this once? You don't want to finish high school without at least trying to have a little fun, right?" I sighed, staring down at the cup. His words lingered. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was missing something by always playing it safe. "Fine," I said, raising the cup slightly. Benny grinned like a kid, pretending to clink his invisible drink against mine when he realized he'd already finished his. I couldn't help but chuckle at how ridiculous he looked. I took a sip. The taste burned, bitter and sharp, but Benny's smile widened. He didn't look away until I took another. And another. Then another cup. After that, everything became a blur. The next thing I remembered was waking up, my head spinning and my thoughts foggy. I blinked at the unfamiliar ceiling above me, plain white, not the dark one in my own room. My stomach twisted as my mind struggled to piece things together. What happened last night? I whispered to myself. I sat up slowly, wincing as my body protested every movement. My clothes were gone, replaced with something I didn't recognize, and my heart began to pound faster. I remembered the party, the drinks, Benny, the laughter. Then flashes, a different house, a deeper voice, a name, Nico Beckett. My breath caught. Nico Beckett, the most talked about guy in school. A year older, confident, mysterious, and notorious for reasons I didn't even want to think about. And somehow, I'd ended up here. For a moment, I just stared at the ceiling, trying to convince myself I was dreaming. But the faint scent of cologne, the unfamiliar surroundings, and the quiet hum of realization said otherwise. "This can't be real," I murmured, running a hand over my face. I couldn't remember what had happened. Not really. Just bits and pieces. Laughter, light, a faint touch, and then nothing. The memory cut off like a blank screen. I lay back down, staring at the ceiling as confusion and panic swirled inside me. "I don't even know what to think anymore," I whispered. "What do I do now?" The room was quiet except for the faint hum of a fan above. My thoughts, however, were anything but quiet. I didn't know how to explain this, to myself, to Benny, or to anyone else. All I knew was that my life, the calm and simple one I'd been perfectly fine with, suddenly felt like it had tilted off its axis. And I had no idea how to make it stop spinning. Chapter 3. I immediately regretted walking to the station instead of catching a ride with Jamie. Even though summer was nearly over, the heat still clung to the city like a second skin. The power grid was struggling to keep up with everyone's air conditioners, and every step I took under the sun felt heavier than the last. It wasn't even a long walk, but by the time I reached the train station, I was drenched in sweat and gasping for air. My glasses kept slipping down the bridge of my nose as I stumbled into the crowded train, surrounded by other exhausted commuters. The train car was packed, every seat taken, every inch of railing already gripped by someone's hand. I muttered quiet apologies as I squeezed through the narrow space, finding a small spot near the door where I could stand. Dropping my backpack by my feet, I leaned back against the warm metal panel and tried to focus on anything other than the heat. From the corner of my eye, I spotted familiar flashes of navy blue and white, the colors of my school uniform. A few students from my school were scattered among the crowd. Thankfully, I didn't recognize any of them. Their shirts were untucked, ties hanging loose, and scuffed shoes told stories of carelessness. One of them threw something across the aisle, laughing loudly when it hit his friend, and accidentally brushed against the head of a girl sitting behind him. The girl shot him a glare before moving away, clearly annoyed, while the boys only laughed harder. I rolled my eyes, pulling out a book from my bag and using a crumpled supermarket receipt as a bookmark. I slid into the words, hoping they'd drown out the noise of shouting and laughter around me. But the train ride was long enough for my thoughts to drift, and they didn't drift anywhere good. Because they went straight to Nico Beckett. I'd spent all of Saturday and most of Sunday replaying everything that had happened, or at least, everything I could remember. My head still hurt, and the dark circles under my eyes told me sleep hadn't done much good. At least I looked okay, even if I didn't feel it. My uniform was neat, my hair brushed back, and my face a little less pale than it had been the day before. But inside, I felt like a walking disaster. The memories of the party were still in pieces, flashes that didn't quite fit together. I could vaguely recall being pulled into a car, the smell of smoke and alcohol, the weight of exhaustion pressing down on me. A blur of laughter, voices, and then, Wesley! The sound of my name echoed faintly in my mind, almost like a memory trying to resurface. Wesley! This time, the voice was real. I blinked and looked up, startled. A pair of small hands was waving in front of my face, followed by a soft laugh. The owner of the voice stood before me, a girl in my school uniform, neatly dressed unlike the others from before. Her light brown hair was tied in a tight braid, secured with a white ribbon that matched her crisp shirt. She looked delicate, like someone who'd stepped out of a watercolor painting, petite, composed, and polite. "This is our station," she said with a kind smile. "Unless you're planning to ditch class." I quickly shoved my book into my bag and stepped out just as the doors began to close, barely managing to pull my backpack free before it got caught. "Thanks," I said, offering her a small, sheepish smile. "No problem," she replied with an easy laugh. Then she wiped her palm on her skirt and extended her hand toward me. "I'm Sophia. Sorry if my hand's a bit clammy." "Wesley," I said, mimicking her gesture after wiping my own hand on my pants. "And same, sorry about that." Sophia grinned. "No worries. I've heard your name before actually. I'm a year below you, and Mr. Redman told our class that you topped math last year. He said if we wanted to know the secret to success, we should ask you." I blinked, caught off guard by the compliment. "I think he's exaggerating," I said awkwardly, rubbing the back of my neck. Sophia laughed softly. "He also said you're not the type to brag, so compliments probably won't get you to talk." She winked playfully. "So I'll just ask straight, how do I not fail?" Her serious tone lasted for only a few seconds before she cracked a smile again, her laughter warm and genuine. I found myself smiling too, though part of my mind still lingered elsewhere, somewhere darker, more complicated. Sophia was calm and kind, the kind of person whose presence made things feel lighter. She was nothing like him. When we reached the school gates, Sophia waved at a group of friends waiting nearby. Then she turned back to me, her bag slipping slightly off her shoulder. "I'm in Neil House," she said with a teasing smile. "In case you ever feel like sharing your math secrets." She lowered her voice dramatically, as if we were striking a secret deal, and it made me laugh. "Maybe," I replied. Sophia let out a cheerful squeal, waved goodbye, and ran toward her friends. Her braid bounced behind her as they disappeared through the school entrance, leaving me standing at the gate, a little dazed but smiling. For the first time that morning, I felt the faintest flicker of normalcy. Even if my thoughts still whispered the same name I'd been trying to forget. Nico Beckett. Smiling to myself, I nearly jumped when I felt a pair of heavy hands land on my shoulders. I relaxed once I caught the familiar, and honestly unpleasant, scent of Benny's aftershave. "I'm waiting for your apology," I said without turning around, crossing my arms as I kept walking. Benny's hand stayed on my shoulders as he let out an exaggerated groan. "So," he said dramatically before wrapping his arms around my neck and leaning his head on my shoulder. His blonde hair, which he'd been growing out lately, brushed against my neck, making me sigh. I tried to step away, but he just laughed and clung tighter, like a leech. "Really though, Wes. I'm sorry. You got home okay, right? After the party?" My stomach tightened at his words, memories flickering behind my eyes, dark green walls, wrinkled sheets, but I forced my voice to stay calm. "Yeah," I said flatly, giving him a side glance. "No thanks to you." Benny laughed sheepishly as I pushed open the doors to the main hallway. The usual morning chaos greeted us, students chatting by their lockers, comparing notes, trading stories about the weekend. I'd been dreading coming back to school, for obvious reasons. After all, if anyone found out about what had happened, or might have happened, with Nico Beckett, it would spread like wildfire. But to my surprise, no one seemed to notice me at all. Like always, I blended into the sea of navy and white. Letting out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding, I made my way to my locker. Benny's arms still hung loosely around my shoulders. "Are you planning to let go sometime this century?" I asked, spinning my locker combination. The lock clicked, and I shoved my bag inside, twisting it around until it fit. I grabbed my first book of the day. A small smile tugged at my lips as I remembered Sophia. Maybe I could make her some study notes to help her out. "Oh, is that a smile I see? Does that mean I'm forgiven?" Benny teased, grinning. My smile faded immediately. I elbowed him lightly in the ribs, and he groaned dramatically, pretending to fall to his knees. A few nearby students stared, shaking their heads as I laughed. Yeah, you're forgiven. Now get up." "You're embarrassing me," I said, tugging him back to his feet. "But I thought you'd be mad forever," he said, grinning as he grabbed his books. Benny and I didn't share many classes. I took mostly science subjects, while he leaned toward the humanities. English was the only class we had together, usually spent with him peeking at my notes and copying them in a rush, only to end up unable to read his own handwriting later. How he managed to pass every term was beyond me. "Yeah, well," I said with a smirk, "I've been mad at you for 12 years. I paused, pretending to count on my fingers. Or was it 13? I wish I had 13 fingers. Benny laughed and playfully punched my arm. Despite the humor, my mind wandered back to that night, the one I couldn't quite piece together. Alcohol. A blank. Then waking up in Nico Beckett's bed. The school bell rang, echoing through the halls. Groans filled the air as students hurried off to their classes. "I'll see you at lunch, yeah?" Benny said before jogging off toward his classroom, which was halfway across campus. As I turned down another hallway, still busy with students, I saw him. Nico Beckett. He was leaning against the lockers, his arm around a girl's waist as they stood close, laughing softly. His dark hair fell messily over his blue eyes, and a faint smirk played on his lips. His tie was loose, his shirt slightly untucked, giving him that same careless look that somehow made everyone notice him. For a moment, I froze. The memory of that smirk, those same blue eyes, flashed in my mind. My heart pounded in my chest. Don't look at me. Don't notice me. But I couldn't help it. My eyes stayed on him. The girl laughed, brushing her hair behind her ear as Nico leaned closer to whisper something. She smiled shyly, her face turning a soft shade of pink. Just keep walking, I told myself, taking another step. Then Nico's gaze lifted. Our eyes met. Time slowed. His brow furrowed slightly, recognition flickering in his expression. His smile faded, his arms dropping from around the girl. She gave him a confused look, but Nico just murmured something too low for me to hear. His face returned to its usual unreadable calm. I quickly turned away, my pulse racing. By the time I entered my classroom, I felt like I could barely breathe. I went straight to my seat near the window, trying to focus as the teacher started writing on the board. Through the scratched glass, I saw him again, outside by the fence, lighting a cigarette. He looked up toward my window. I instantly ducked my head, sinking lower in my chair, feeling my stomach twist. This is the worst. Chapter 4. After a rough, distracted start to my classes, I finally managed to push away my uneasy thoughts and focus on my lessons. Math wasn't much of a challenge. I had already covered most of the material over the summer. During the second half of the period, I even started writing some revision notes for Sophia. I wasn't sure if I'd actually see her again, but a part of me hoped I would. She seemed kind and genuine, the kind of person who was easy to be around. Calm, respectful, and safe. The type of girl my mom would be thrilled to see me bring home. The kind Jamie would probably take shopping or to brunch just to gossip about me behind my back. The type of girl I could actually imagine asking out on a date. One day, the morning dragged on, and by the time recess rolled around, my stomach was growling. I didn't bother looking for Benny. Instead, I decided to head to my next classroom early to eat in peace. The room was empty. Rows of desks stood neatly aligned, their wooden surfaces covered in doodles and scribbles left by years of restless students. The hum of the air conditioner filled the quiet room. I took a deep breath, relieved to have a break from the noise outside. Since that awkward moment before class, I hadn't seen Nico anywhere. The thought alone made my shoulders loosen. He probably skipped his classes and left campus after that smoke break. Maybe he went off with the girl from this morning, or someone else from his group. Either way, as long as he wasn't here, I could finally breathe. Opening a pack of biscuits, I popped one into my mouth and grabbed the same book I'd been reading on the train. Time passed slowly, the only sounds being the soft crinkle of pages and the crunching of snacks. Then the door burst open. I jumped, dropping my biscuit onto the table. Crumbs scattered everywhere. Nico stood in the doorway, his hair slightly messy, a few strands falling over his sharp blue eyes. His expression was unreadable, though his furrowed brows gave away some kind of frustration. Without a word, he shut the door behind him with a force that made it rattle and walked toward the empty chair beside me. Please don't sit there, I silently begged. Anywhere but there. Of course he did. The chair screeched against the floor as he pulled it out and sat down. He didn't say a word, just leaned back, kicked his legs up onto the desk, and crossed his arms. His rolled-up sleeves revealed a few faint tattoos scattered across his forearm, catching the light when his muscles flexed. I began awkwardly, but he opened one eye, giving me a tired, almost annoyed look. What? He said, his deep voice rough from disinterest. Nothing, I muttered quickly. The word tasted false on my tongue. A strange quiet settled between us. The steady rhythm of his breathing began to slow, his head dropping slightly as he drifted off. The sunlight streaming through the window painted faint shadows across his face, his eyelashes moving each time he exhaled. I tried to focus on my book again, but my eyes wandered back to him. Why was he even here, sitting beside me of all people? He looked almost peaceful, so different from his usual confident, untouchable self. And maybe, just maybe, he was a little handsome. Just a little. Like what you see. His voice startled me. I jumped, nearly knocking my elbow against the wall. He cracked a faint smirk. though his expression quickly shifted back to his usual cool indifference. "Excuse me?" I asked, trying to sound unfazed while nervously fiddling with my hands under the desk. "You were staring," he said simply, a quiet laugh escaping his lips. "Just like the other morning, or I guess, afternoon by then." My face burned. "You're mistaken," I said, though even I could hear the lie in my voice. Nico caught it too, his smile widening slightly before fading again. I turned my gaze back to my book, trying to hide my flustered expression. He shifted in his seat, lowering his feet from the desk and turning toward me, his knee bumping mine. I could feel his eyes on me, waiting. Clearing my throat, I finally spoke. "The other night, my fingers fidgeted with the corner of my book. Did something happen?" Nico leaned back slightly, exhaling through his nose. His expression softened, just a little. "We were both pretty out of it," he said quietly. "But nothing worth worrying about." Relief washed over me. "Oh, I thought." I stopped myself, rubbing the back of my neck awkwardly. "Never mind." Nico gave a short chuckle, the sound low but not unkind. "Relax. It's not a big deal." "Right?" I said, forcing a small smile. "Not a big deal." He tilted his head slightly, studying me for a moment before closing his eyes again, leaning back like the conversation never happened. I tried to refocus on my book, but my mind kept replaying his words. When the bell finally rang, I jumped a little from surprise. Students began pouring into the room, filling the empty seats. I looked over at Nico, expecting him to get up and leave. But he didn't. He was still there, sitting beside me, calm as ever. And for some reason, that made my heart beat just a little faster. "Nico?" A high-pitched voice called out dramatically. I didn't even need to look up to know who it was, Alyssa. She strutted over, her short dress catching far too much attention. Her perfume filled the air, overly sweet and almost dizzying. "What are you doing here?" she asked, stepping behind Nico and wrapping her arms around him. Nico's expression flickered with mild annoyance before he sighed and opened his eyes. With a lazy grin, he gave Alyssa a brief kiss on the cheek, which made her giggle and whisper something only he could hear. "I'm in this class," Nico replied coolly, his tone flat but effortless. "Really? Awesome. Come sit with us at the back," Alyssa said excitedly, tugging on his arm. Her friends in the back corner were already whispering and filming, their laughter barely contained. "It'll be so much more fun back there." I felt Nico's gaze flick toward me for just a second before he stood up. Alyssa squealed in delight, linking her arm through his as if she'd just won some prize. Their group erupted into chatter and laughter that only grew louder as Nico followed her halfway down the room. Then, the classroom door opened. Silence, or at least a quieter chaos, settled in as Ms. Levinson entered. Her hair was tied back tightly, her glasses perched perfectly on her nose. Everything about her, from the deep burgundy lipstick to the no-nonsense expression, spelled authority. "Mr. Beckett," she said sharply, spotting Nico immediately. "Glad you decided to join us today." Nico gave her a half-glance before turning back toward the window, saying nothing. The vein in Miss Levinson's forehead twitched, but she carried on, announcing our topics for the week and explaining our next big project. "And for the group experiment," she said with forced cheer, "partners will be drawn randomly." The entire class groaned in unison. I stayed quiet, already bracing myself for whoever fate decided to stick me with. Miss Levinson stopped by my desk and smiled faintly. "Hopefully you'll get someone who actually helps this time, Wesley." She gave the box a shake, then moved down the aisle. One by one, students reached in and picked their partners. Groans and laughter filled the room as everyone discovered their fates. When Alyssa's turn came, she smiled confidently, clearly hoping to be paired with Nico. But when she opened her slip of paper, her face fell. She scrunched it up, muttered something under her breath, and threw it onto her desk. Her glare found me. Of course. Alyssa Stiles, of all people. I sighed, gathering my books and making my way toward her. She didn't even look up when I reached her desk. Her friends stared at me, whispering to each other behind their hands. Clearing my throat, I said, "Hey, looks like we're partners." Alyssa looked up with a perfectly practiced smile. Oh, right. Will. Wesley, I corrected. Right, I knew that. She laughed awkwardly, immediately distracted as her phone buzzed. When are you free to work on this? I asked, trying to sound polite. 1 second, she mumbled, eyes glued to her phone. I sighed. Sure. It's not like I have anything else to do, I muttered under my breath. Before I could turn away, a low voice came from behind me. I'm free this weekend. Both Alyssa and I froze. Nico leaned back in his seat, his eyes half-lidded but with the faintest trace of a smirk. What? We said at the same time. Nico picked up the crumpled paper from Alyssa's desk, unfolded it, and waved it lightly. We're swapping partners. Without another word, he stood and brushed past me, his shoulder grazing mine as he walked back to the front. Come on, he said quietly. I hesitated, feeling every pair of jealous eyes burning into my back, before following him. Alyssa's friends whispered furiously as I sat back down in the seat beside Nico, the one he'd claimed earlier that morning. Miss Levinson glanced at the two of us, her expression unreadable. Good luck, Wesley, she said dryly. She gave Nico a look of warning when she saw his head drooping again, but instead of scolding him, she simply sighed and moved on. Once she was out of earshot, I whispered, So, this weekend then? Nico's eyes opened slightly, the corner of his lips curving upward. My place, he said simply. You know where it is. My heartbeat picked up for reasons I didn't want to admit. Chapter 5. Nico had already slipped out of the classroom before the lunch bell rang, leaving me alone with our experiment plans scattered across the desk. Sighing, I gathered the loose sheets and tucked them into my folder. Most of the notes were in my neat handwriting, but a few pages had Nico's rough, hurried scrawls. His pen pressed hard into the paper, leaving deep impressions, but I didn't mind. Even his short contributions added a spark of perspective to our project. I was pretty sure Alyssa would have been glued to her phone the whole time, barely pretending to work. As long as I got the grades I wanted, I didn't care. Thanking Miss Levinson as I left the classroom, I waved back at her. She didn't even look up from her notes, and headed for my locker. Benny was already there, bouncing impatiently on his heels. Taking your sweet time, he said, punching my arm lightly as I unlocked my locker. I winced but shoved my books inside, pulling out my bag. Benny practically yanked me toward the canteen, weaving through the throngs of students. It's because you were slow that there's probably nothing left. Shut up, Benny, I muttered, frowning as I squeezed past the dense crowd. Somehow, the lunch rush had grown even thicker since we'd arrived. I finally made it to the counter, earning tired glares from the lunch staff. What do you want? One of the ladies asked, yawning slightly. I pointed to a box of rice and curry, paid, and slipped away, dodging elbows and backpack straps. I glanced around for Benny, who was still trying to navigate the crowd with his taller frame. He struggled more than I expected, shoving his way forward, muttering under his breath. Then a cheerful voice called out, cutting through the noise. Hey, Wesley. I turned, surprised, and saw Sophia standing there, smiling at me. She'd changed her hairstyle since morning. Her braid was now a neat bun at the base of her neck, secured with a white ribbon. In her hands, she carried a brown paper bag and a water bottle tucked under her arm. She raised an eyebrow at Benny, who was triumphantly holding up his lunch like a trophy. I didn't know our school was putting on a live-action Lion King, Sophia teased, and I laughed. I don't know that guy, if you're wondering, I said, shrugging. Sophia snorted, her nose wrinkling adorably as she laughed. Benny leaned lazily on my shoulder, and I let out a quiet sigh. You definitely don't know him, Sophia said, giving Benny a playful glance. Benny just grinned back warmly at her. Thanks for talking to Wes, Benny said dramatically, pretending to sob. I was starting to think he didn't talk to girls at all. Sophia covered her mouth with her hand, stifling a laugh. I froze for a second, memories of Nico's arm brushing mine flashing through my mind. Shaking it off, I wiggled out from under Benny's weight and jabbed him playfully in the side. Ignore him, I said. Sophia saluted in response, then gestured toward a group sitting at a nearby table in the courtyard. My friends and I are having lunch here. Want to join us? She asked, her eyes hopeful as she gently tugged at my sleeve. "Promise I don't have to give you my math notes in return?" I joked, pressing a hand to my chest in mock offense. Sophia winked, laughing and pulling me toward the table. The group looked up as we approached. Sophia introduced us: Rachel, a shy girl with cropped auburn hair pinned back neatly; Leonard, or Leo, who had a bright smile and was still slightly sweaty from pee; and Parker, who waved cheerfully while mid-bite of his sandwich. "Math's guy, right?" Parker asked, his curls flopping over his forehead. Sophia gave him a quick pinch, giving me an apologetic smile. "Yes, I'm Wesley, the maths guy," I said, amused as Sophia nudged Parker down the bench so I could sit beside her. Benny took the seat across from Leonard. "Also the biology guy, from what I've heard," Rachel added, leaning forward. "And chemistry too," she added with a small smile. Leonard whistled softly, making me rub the back of my neck awkwardly. Sophia laughed at my reaction. "Don't worry, I didn't invite you all here just for tutoring, unless you want to," Sophia teased, wiggling her eyebrows. Parker snorted while Rachel rolled her eyes. "I just want to be friends." I chuckled, playing along. "Sophia, we hardly know each other." "This is so forward," I said, dramatically opening my eyes wide. Sophia lightly tapped my shoulder, and the group erupted in laughter. As the laughter settled, I pulled out a thin notebook from my bag and handed it to Sophia. She looked at me curiously, my neat handwriting filling the pages in blue ink. "Notes?" she asked, clearly confused. "Your notes? They might help with your revision a little," I said, laughing as I pointed to a few messy spots in my notes. "Some parts might be hard to read, but send me a picture, and I can explain them." Sophia hugged the notebook to her chest gratefully, her eyes lighting up. "I can almost smell graduation now," she said with a small laugh, giving my forearm a gentle squeeze. "Thanks, Wes. That's really nice of you." "No problem," I replied, returning her smile before turning back to my lunch. Benny shot me a mischievous grin, earning a swift kick to the shin. I ignored him as Sophia shifted slightly closer, her leg brushing mine. I flinched at the warmth, reminded of how Nico had bumped mine in class just a couple of hours ago. "Just forget it. I'm not into people like you," I reminded myself. "Forget it, Wes," I whispered again, bumping my thigh lightly against Sophia's. Her soft smile lingered in my peripheral vision. Forget it. Standing outside Nico's house made my heart race. Last time I had been here, I had fled in a blur, but now I took it all in. The house was modest but had a beautiful, flourishing garden, bursting with colorful flowers. The brick pathway led to a door adorned with stained glass panels and white wood. The walls were freshly painted, bright and inviting. I hesitated, hand hovering over the door. How had I ended up here? Associating with Nico Beckett, even after everything, felt surreal. Somehow, he had wormed his way into my thoughts at the worst possible moments. I knocked, and within moments, Nico opened the door. He looked casual yet effortlessly good-looking, dressed in black jeans ripped at the knees and a simple black t-shirt. His tired eyes lifted to meet mine, and he gestured me inside with a small, welcoming smirk. The inside of the house was even brighter than the outside. Vibrant yellow walls were covered in photographs, and colorful throws were neatly draped over the couches. A small upright piano pressed against one wall was topped with more framed photos. "Nice house," I murmured. "Not the first time you've seen it," Nico reminded me, and I felt my cheeks heat up. "I don't know what you're talking about," I muttered, staring at the soft carpet as we walked upstairs. Nico glanced back at me with an amused grin. "Sure," he said lightly, leading me into the kitchen. The room was small but cozy. Pots hung over the stove, and the counter was scattered with vases of cut flowers, some slightly wilted, others freshly picked. 2 chairs were tucked under the counter, upholstered in warm blue fabric. I set my bag down and began unpacking, while Nico leaned casually against the counter, watching. When I finished, he nodded toward the other chair. "You left one of your socks here," he said casually, pointing. My eyes followed his gesture to my dinosaur print sock draped over the armrest. I yelped, snatching it up and stuffing it into my bag as Nico chuckled, sitting down. "Screw you," I hissed, pressing my hands to my cheeks, which felt uncomfortably warm. "You already did," Nico replied with a teasing grin. I groaned, pressing my forehead against the counter for a moment. "It was my first time, you know," I muttered quietly. "And I can't even remember it. And it was with you." "You say that like it's a bad thing," Nico said, tilting his head, clearly amused. I turned my cheek against the counter, trying to hide my embarrassment. "You're a guy," I said simply. Nico shrugged. "So?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "So?" I echoed, sitting up. "I'm also a guy." "I noticed," Nico said, leaning his head on his hand. After a brief pause, he leaned forward slightly, close enough that I could smell the faint hint of his aftershave. I flinched back instinctively. "What are you doing?" "Best eyes wide." He chuckled softly. "Satisfying my curiosity," he said, his gaze lingering on my face. "Curiosity about what?" I asked, still trying to calm my racing thoughts. Nico laughed lightly, leaning back. "Not this time," he said, his usual playful grin in place. I shook my head, muttering under my breath. "I'm not into guys. Definitely not Nico Beckett. Trying to distract myself, I pulled a small packet of mung beans from my bag. "Experiment. Beans. Start." "Now," I said, placing them on the counter and opening my books. Nico gave me a quizzical look, but I ignored him, focusing on the task ahead. Just focus. That's all that matters. Chapter 6. After we started the experiment, Nico quickly grew bored and wandered off to his room, leaving me to set up the plastic petri dishes and prepare the glucose solutions. I had to rummage through the unfamiliar kitchen for cups and measuring tools myself. When I asked him to at least help me place the mung beans into the dishes, he gave me an incredulous look before returning to scrolling on his phone. Maybe Alyssa would have been better. At least I wouldn't expect anything from her, I thought, suppressing a sigh. "You're the worst," I muttered, carefully packing the prepared dishes into a cardboard box. My cheeks flushed as Nico glanced up at me with a small smirk, still absorbed in his phone. "Done?" he asked, eyes challenging. I let out a frustrated grunt, balling my hands into fists. "You're so..." I started, then let out a breath, forcing my irritation to fade. I rubbed the bridge of my nose, exhaling slowly. "Never mind. Do you have a dark cupboard or wardrobe we can store these in while they sprout? They'll only need a week." "Storing sprouts in my house?" Nico raised an eyebrow, his tone teasing. I plastered a stiff smile on my face, gripping the box tighter. "If you'd helped with the project, you'd know why." Nico chuckled and shrugged, sliding his phone into his back pocket. He took the box from me gently and gestured toward the stairs as we walked out of the kitchen. "We can use my wardrobe. There should be space," Nico said. My steps faltered behind him. "Your wardrobe?" I asked weakly, face paling. "It doesn't have to be your wardrobe. Any dark closet would work." "Mine is a dark closet," Nico said with a small smirk. At the door to his bedroom, he teased, "Nervous?" "I'm fine," I replied quickly, fisting my hands again as I stepped inside. Nico's low chuckle followed me, making me bristle. The door clicked shut behind me. Looking around, the room hadn't changed much since last Saturday. The green walls were the same, the ceiling fan spun lazily, posters still peeled at the corners, and his desk was covered with piles of books and papers. Clothes were scattered, though thankfully none of mine. My gaze landed on his bed. The pale sheets, thin blanket, and pillows were arranged just as they had been. I tore my eyes away quickly, only to bump into Nico's chest as he moved closer than expected. The warmth of him made me stumble back slightly, and my leg caught on the bed frame. I fell backward, arms flailing, but Nico's hand steadied me. Back on the mattress, legs dangling over the edge, I looked up to see Nico's familiar blue eyes. He smiled, leaning slightly, his presence both intimidating and oddly comforting. I shivered, caught in the awareness of his closeness. Before I could react further, I quickly reached for the box of mung beans, reminding myself why I was there. Focus on the experiment. That's all that matters. The next day, I found myself swaying slightly under the bright lights of a crowded hallway. People jostled past, moving in waves around me. I pushed through the throng to a quieter hallway, letting out a relieved sigh as the noise and flashing lights faded. The drink in my hand sloshed slightly, cool against my skin. My foot caught on the edge of a carpet, and I stumbled forward, hands brushing against the wall to steady myself. Sliding along the wall, I finally reached a door and twisted the knob, only to trip and fall forward onto the floor. A surprised gasp came from ahead of me. Blinking up through bleary eyes, I saw two figures in the dim hallway. The boy sat back in the chair, relaxed, while the girl adjusted her sweater nervously. My intrusion had clearly startled them. "What are you doing here?" the girl exclaimed, stepping back. "Sorry," I blurted, scrambling to my feet by grabbing the edge of the nearby bed for support. "I didn't mean to." "Creep," she added, pointing at me. I snorted, wobbling on my feet. "Creep? Funny word. Funny." The boy chuckled quietly, and the tension eased slightly as I straightened. I forced a small smile and held up my hands in apology, mumbling, "Sorry, really. I'll go." The girl muttered something under her breath, still glaring, but I made my way out carefully, leaving them in their privacy. "I said get out of here, the girl shouted, her words cut off as the boy stumbled slightly while helping her adjust her balance on the chair. The movement was hurried, and I could tell he was struggling to keep steady. Once he settled, she straightened herself, brushing off her sweater, while he smoothed his shirt and looked around, clearly embarrassed. "Nico? Where are you going?" she asked softly, trying to call him back, but he simply shook his head with a small smile. I couldn't help but giggle. "Nico," I echoed, the name rolling easily off my lips in the warm, hazy blur of alcohol. "Nico." I laughed and wobbled slightly, my body tipping forward. Before I could faceplant for a second time, I found myself leaning against a strong chest. The boy steadied me, hands resting lightly on my arms as I giggled into his shirt. "Oops," I mumbled, patting his chest lightly. "I fell." "Funny, right?" "It is funny," he replied, a grin tugging at the corner of his lips. He slung my arm over his shoulder, helping me stay upright as I clumsily leaned into him. I could feel the mix of alcohol and warmth, making everything feel fuzzy and light. "Where are we going?" I asked, leaning against his side, grateful for the support. "Home," he replied simply. "My home." I frowned. "Mine's really far." "Not mine," he said with a hint of a slur in his voice. "Oh, that's nice," I murmured, humming as he adjusted his grip on my waist, fishing a set of car keys from his pocket. He led me across the lawn, away from the party, and pressed the lock on the door with 2 quick beeps. I laughed, mimicking the sound with my hand. "Beep beep." He let out a soft chuckle and opened the car door for me. I climbed in, fumbling slightly, and sat in the passenger seat. The car smelled faintly of smoke, making me wrinkle my nose. "It stinks," I complained, waving my hand. "It's not safe. Driving with this smell? Bad." He chuckled, starting the engine. I clutched his forearm, shaking my head dramatically. "No, really. You could crash. I could crash. I'm too young to crash. Taxi." "Oh, but I don't have money for a taxi." He laughed so hard he had to cover his mouth, slamming the brakes briefly and shaking his head. "We're fine," he said when he caught his breath, eyes following my hands still gripping his arm. I squeezed gently, feeling the warmth and strength beneath his sleeve, before he finally pulled open my door to help me out. We tumbled onto the grass, laughing as we righted ourselves. "Uber," he said, pointing toward the curb where a small silver hatchback had pulled up. "Oh, that's good. I won't die. I'm too young to die," I exclaimed, shaking him lightly as he leaned against me, laughter muffled into my shoulder. He laughed a lot, more than I'd ever seen him, and it was nice. We struggled into the back seat of the Uber, the driver raising an eyebrow at us but otherwise ignoring our clumsiness. Soon, we arrived at a colorful house surrounded by flowers. I jumped slightly as the door beside me opened. Nico steadied himself against it, smiling down at me. His bright grin made my stomach flutter as he offered a hand. Hesitating briefly, I took it, letting him guide me onto the pavement. I leaned slightly against his chest, feeling warm and safe. Your eyes, they're pretty, I murmured, making him chuckle. I nestled closer, hands brushing against his waist. And you're warm. I like warm. Do you? He asked, voice soft, vibrating gently as he held me steady. I nodded, shivering slightly at the closeness. His fingers brushed my cheeks playfully, and I swatted at them, smiling under his attention. I tipped slightly onto my toes, adjusting closer in his embrace. He tugged my glasses from my face gently, and loose strands of hair brushed my eyelids. I smiled against his shoulder, feeling the comforting warmth and support, my lips grazing his cheek in a playful, light kiss. Feels nice, I murmured, and he smiled. I can make you feel even better, he said softly, teasing gently, and I giggled, pressing my face against his shoulder again. I want that, I whispered. Chapter 7. I laughed as Nico fumbled with the front door, my back pressed against the wood as he steadied himself. He grinned down at me, his hands lightly on my waist as we stumbled together. You okay? He asked, eyes twinkling. I nodded, holding onto his shoulders, our laughter blending together. Leaning down, he pressed a quick, playful kiss to my cheek. I sighed, melting into the warmth of his embrace. Parents? I whispered. Nope, he replied, a teasing glint in his eye. He took my hand and led me upstairs, holding my hand firmly so I wouldn't trip. I stumbled a few steps, laughing, and he gave me a reassuring squeeze, pulling me gently along. At the threshold of his room, we paused. He let go of my hand to grab a blanket and toss it over the chair, smiling down at me. I couldn't help but notice the way his eyes caught the light, how his grin made my chest flutter. I kicked off my shoes, and he followed suit, shaking his head at my antics. I threw a sock at him, and he dodged with exaggerated flair, making me giggle. Careful! I laughed. You're impossible, he said, chuckling. I wobbled, and he caught me again, holding me steady. Thanks, I murmured, cheeks warm. He laughed softly, brushing a strand of hair from my face, and I felt that familiar flutter of nervous excitement. We collapsed side by side onto his bed, laughing as we tried to settle ourselves. I leaned against him, his warmth comforting, and we lay there, watching the ceiling fan spin lazily. You're really warm, I whispered, nudging him lightly. Do you like that? He asked, voice soft and teasing. I nodded, smiling up at him. I do. He laughed quietly and nudged my shoulder with his own, playful and gentle. I tilted my head, brushing my lips against his cheek in a quick, light kiss. He caught my hand in his, fingers curling around mine. You know, I like this, he said, his voice low, eyes meeting mine. Me too, I admitted, squeezing his hand. We spent the next few minutes tangled together, our fingers entwined, sharing whispered jokes and soft laughter. I pressed my face against his shoulder, inhaling the comforting scent of him, feeling a closeness that made my heart race. Eventually, Nico rose to fetch some water, tossing me a grin as he did. I watched him, my heart fluttering at the simple familiarity of him moving around his room. When he returned, we settled back under the blanket, lying side by side, shoulders touching. He draped the soft blanket over us, tucking it around my shoulders. I smiled, feeling safe, warm, and strangely content. Thanks, I murmured. For what? He asked, turning his head to look at me. For everything, I replied quietly, my eyes half closed. He didn't answer with words, just offered a small, knowing smile, and I felt my eyes grow heavy. Nico's hand brushed mine once more before his arms settled across my shoulders in a protective, comforting gesture. The last thing I saw before drifting off to sleep were his bright blue eyes and the faint ink of his tattoos, hovering gently in front of me as his presence wrapped around me like a warm hug. The sheets were soft. The room was quiet. And for the first time in a long while, I felt completely at peace. Thanks for listening to today's BL story. If it made your heart skip a beat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only here on BL Stories, where love knows no limits.